Okay, so that first example of bond pricing was definitely oversimplified because not very many bonds out there in the world actually are paid annually. Most of them are semi-annual bonds, meaning that they pay out every 6 months. Okay? So how do you go about figuring out a present value for that? Now, this is one of those topics that was included in the interest chapter, which we did not go into. So this is just something that you're going to kind of have to fold into the application. Okay. Interest rates are generally quoted annually. But not all interest payments are made annually, right? So if you take a mortgage, a 30-year mortgage at 6%, you're paying mortgage payments every month. And so your monthly mortgage interest is going to be 1/12 of 6% of whatever the remaining balance is on your loan. So you always need to make sure that you are dividing the quoted interest rates by the number of times per year that the payment is being made. And so this is only going to really make sense with an example. So our example that we're given here is actually pretty confusing. Okay, so here we have an example of a bond from Coca-Cola. It is a semi-annual bond. Okay. At the time that this bond was being sold in 2008, it had a yield of 5.4%, but it was originally issued in 1992. All right, so this is our example. Right, it's a 30-year semi-annual bond being resold in 2008. Okay, but the first example they have you walk through in the book was pricing it at its original issue. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and pick up the data that we need, right? So we're going to fill this in with our normal data chart for what we need in order to calculate our present value. But the values that populate this chart are actually given below. Okay. The only thing that we can really derive here, well, we know what the future value is going to be 1,000. And the payment we know, right? So remember, this is a semi-annual payment. So this is a semi-annual payment, which is 1/2 of 8.5% of 1,000. Right, so that is 4,250, right? 4.25% is 1/2 of 8.5%. Right, this is semi-annual, and our type is always going to be 0 as well. Okay, and then the number of periods, right, from the original issue. Right, it's a 30-year bond, semi-annual. Okay, so that means 2 payments per year. Right, so this is 60 periods. So 60 times we're going to get $42.50. And so the remaining question is, what's the yield to maturity at the time of original issue? And that is buried in here. When this bond first sold, you see that? When this bond first sold, it had a yield to maturity of 8.8% annually. Right, so this yield at the original time so that's going to be 0.044, right? 1/2 of 8.8%. So now that we have this set up properly, again, the key is to get your timeline straight and make sure that your number of periods and your payments and your rates are all sort of along the same timeline. So now we can go ahead and just calculate this out. And there it is. Okay, $968. So in 1992, when this was first issued, with an 8.8, an 8.5 coupon, but an 8.8% yield, you would have actually paid less than that $1,000 for it. Slightly less, okay? So that's how you price this at its original issue. Now, what I want to do with this next example is kind of show you how this present value equation actually relates to the information that is provided on the bond sales sheet, right? And so if we go ahead and copy everything but change our rate and change our number of periods, right? So let's change this to purchasing in 8/1/2008, okay? And between August 1st, 2008 and the 1st of February 2022, you're just going to have to trust me, you can count it. Okay, it's 27 payment events until maturity. Okay, just trust me on that one. If you count it up, you can. How many half years between August 2008 and February 2022. Let's delete this. And so again, if we put in the rate as half of this quoted 5.473, right, which is what was quoted, so let's just calculate that out. Okay, what's our present value going to be? Well, it better be 128% of 1,000. And there it is, right? 128.63, 128,626. Okay, so that's how these all relate. Okay, so that's where that price came from. More to the point, if this is the price that people are willing to pay for this bond, then this is sort of the imputed yield, right? So this price implies a yield of 5.4% a year for this series of payments for the remaining 27%, or for the remaining 27 payments left in the life of the bond. So another type of bond is what we call a zero coupon bond, and what that means is that the payments are zero. The only cash flow that is provided by these investments is the payout of the par value at the end of the period. And you know, these are just like those present value problems that you did in a prior chapter, except that with bonds we assume that the zero coupons that don't even exist are occurring at semi-annual intervals. And so you price them just like you would a comparable example, right? So here we have our example of a zero coupon bond with a par value of $1,000. It matures in 2027. It was issued in 2007. And they're stating that it's a 4.3% return for this 20-year bond. And so the question is, what was the price? It's a present value problem, right? So here's a little example here. We have got a par value of 1,000. So that means that the future value is 1,000. And the payment is 0. And the original issue had a the original issue had a yield of maturity of 4.3% stated annually. So this is going to be 0.043 divided by 2, 0.215. And we need to figure out what the number of periods are. So this is a 20-year bond, so that means it's 40 periods. So our present value should be $427.04, which in fact it was. So for $427, you could buy yourself a $1,000 guaranteed cash flow 20 years from now. So that's how you price zero coupon bonds. The issue, though, is that even though you're not actually getting the payments, you have to pay taxes on them. So you're getting a payment of zero, but because it's interest income, just like when we're doing our accruals in financial accounting, you have to recognize the revenue when you earn it, right? So you have to pay taxes on these zero coupon bonds, even though you haven't gotten any interest payments. And so your book goes into some detail on how to write down the interest on a zero coupon bond. I'm not going to require that of you guys at this time. Perhaps in future iterations of this class we will, but that's a little bit much for right now. So we're going to leave zero coupon bonds for there. Now this next section in your textbook just goes through sort of the mathematical relationship between the coupon rates and yields. From my perspective, these are just two pieces that you plug into a spreadsheet to get your pricing. You can use all of those different time value equations as we went through in the previous modules to determine the fourth unknown when you have the other three, right? Because your yield is your discount rate. The coupon rate defines what your payment is. If you know one and you know your par value and you know your present value, you can impute the other one. And so this whole section of the book just sort of reiterates that, right? So right here they're showing you how to solve for the rate using the rate function in Excel. I'll leave that to you all to do if I had any homework on this question. And then I'm going to end this recording for here, and we'll go on to talk about bond ratings and government bonds.